At 8:14 p.m., during a private family dinner in late 2024, the unthinkable happened inside Buckingham Palace. Princess Anne, the royal known for silence and duty, suddenly stood and spoke directly to King Charles III. Her words froze the room. Catherine was always different. But this wasn't casual praise. It was Queen Elizabeth's final prophecy, entrusted to Anne alone before her passing in September 2022. For the first time, Charles realized his mother had seen Catherine, not him, as the monarchy's true stabilizer. His response? Nothing, just silence and fear. The night Anne shattered the silence. It was a quiet evening at Buckingham Palace, a private family dinner in late 2024, scheduled for 7:30 p.m. No press, no photographs, just the royal family gathered under the chandeliers. The conversation was formal, almost forced. Then, without warning, Princess Anne stood. At 8:14 p.m., she looked directly at King Charles III and spoke. Her voice, usually blunt but calm, cut through the room like glass. "Catherine was always different," she said. The table froze. Those 6 words changed everything. No one expected Anne, the monarch's most loyal sibling, to break silence in this way. Her statement wasn't casual observation. It was deliberate, loaded. Anne revealed that she carried a message, not her own, but one passed directly from Queen Elizabeth II before her death in September 2022. The late Queen had chosen Anne, not Charles, not William, to be the keeper of her final prophecy. And now Anne had decided the moment had come. Charles's reaction was instant, but telling. He didn't answer. His fork paused halfway to his lips. His eyes flickered down, then back to Anne. The silence lasted nearly 20 seconds, but it felt like hours. Around the table, William, Catherine, and Camilla exchanged glances. Everyone knew Anne did not speak unless the words mattered. Her voice carried the authority of a lifetime of service and a mother's trust. In that moment, the family dinner became more than a meal. It became history. Anne had broken the silence of 2 years, revealing that the Queen's final private words had not been meant for the reigning king. Instead, they were meant for Catherine. And Charles, hearing this for the first time, realized his mother had entrusted Anne with a truth that bypassed him entirely. The revelation left the room cold. Why would Queen Elizabeth entrust such a message to Anne and not Charles? To answer that, one must return to the Queen's final private reflections, words Anne had kept hidden since 2022, waiting for the moment when the monarchy itself stood at a crossroads. The Queen's final prophecy. Queen Elizabeth, even in her 96th year, was precise with her words. In her final private conversations with Anne in August 2022, weeks before her passing at Balmoral, she gave a prophecy that would shake the monarchy. She didn't confide in Charles. She didn't leave it for William. Only Anne knew. The Queen said plainly, the monarchy could not survive on bloodline alone. It required character, restraint, and duty. And in her eyes, that quality was found in Catherine. She has calm, the Queen reportedly told Anne. She has silence where others chase glory. These words were not random flattery. They were deliberate observations from a sovereign who had ruled for 70 years, from 1952 to 2022, watching generations rise and falter. Elizabeth saw Catherine's refusal to seek the spotlight as strength. She admired how Catherine put William and their children, George, Charlotte, and Louis, above public performance. To the Queen, this was the essence of monarchy: quiet duty, not loud ambition. The prophecy carried a sting. It was not about Charles, the son who waited 73 years for the crown, nor was it about William, the heir apparent. It was about Catherine, the daughter-in-law who embodied what Elizabeth believed would hold the monarchy together. "It isn't about titles," she told Anne. "It is about who can carry the weight with grace." In that single statement, the Queen rewrote royal succession in spirit, if not in law. For Anne, the burden was immense. She carried her mother's final message in silence through Charles's coronation in May 2023, through state visits and family tensions. But the Queen's words burned quietly in her mind. Catherine was the chosen one, not by Parliament or law, but by Elizabeth's heart. And Anne knew the prophecy would eventually have to be revealed, especially when Catherine herself came under pressure. But why now? Why did Anne wait until a private dinner in 2024 to break her silence? The answer lay not in politics or succession, but in timing. Catherine was under siege, from the press, from palace whispers, and from doubt itself. Anne realized the Queen's message risked being buried forever if she did not speak. Why Anne waited until now? Anne's silence lasted more than 24 months after the Queen's death in September 2022. For 2 years, she said nothing, not even to William or Catherine. But in early 2024, pressure on Catherine grew louder. Critics pointed to her fewer public appearances in 2023, comparing her to Anne's 450-plus engagements in a single year. Tabloids labeled her missing in action, questioning her dedication. Inside the palace, whispers suggested Catherine's influence was being deliberately reduced. Anne saw history repeating, another royal woman being diminished. Anne held back at first, watching. She knew her mother's prophecy could not be wasted on gossip. Timing mattered. The Queen had taught her that silence can be more powerful than words, until the right moment. But by February 2024, Anne reached her limit. Catherine had skipped the Earthshot Awards to focus on Prince George's exams, a decision ridiculed publicly. To Anne, this was proof of Catherine's priorities, putting family and duty above vanity. It mirrored exactly what Elizabeth admired. That was the breaking point. Anne realized that if she did not speak, the Queen's words would be buried under criticism. Worse, Catherine's strength, her silence, her restraint, would be mistaken for weakness. And so, on that evening at Buckingham Palace, she stood. Her message was not just to defend Catherine, it was to defend the Queen's vision. Anne's decision to wait until now was both strategic and emotional. She knew Catherine did not need public defense from tabloids. She needed private validation from within the family and from the Queen's legacy itself. By revealing the prophecy at that moment, Anne ensured Catherine was no longer fighting alone. The Queen's voice, through Anne, had entered the room, and it silenced everyone. Charles's silence that night spoke volumes. He was not only stunned by his sister's words, he was shaken by what they meant. That even in her final reflections, their mother had seen Catherine, not him, as the stabilizer of the crown. And that realization left Charles speechless. King Charles left speechless. When Anne finished her words at that Buckingham Palace dinner in late 2024, the silence was suffocating. King Charles III, seated at the head of the table, lowered his gaze. At 8:21 p.m., he reached for his glass of water, but never drank. Those who know him describe Charles as thoughtful, sometimes verbose, but in that moment, he said nothing. His silence wasn't confusion. It was recognition. His mother's prophecy had bypassed him, and Anne had just made it public inside the family. Charles had waited 73 years to wear the crown, finally ascending in September 2022 after the Queen's death. His coronation in May 2023 had been celebrated as the beginning of his era, but Anne's revelation suggested otherwise. For decades, Charles imagined his reign shared with Camilla, the woman he fought for against scandal. Yet, the Queen's private words, preserved by Anne, pointed to Catherine, not Camilla, not even himself, as the monarchy's stabilizer. It was a dagger to his confidence. Anne's loyalty and reputation made her untouchable. She had carried out 400 to 500 engagements every year, never scandalized, always dutiful. When Anne spoke, it wasn't gossip. It was authority. Charles knew better than to challenge her in front of William and Catherine. His silence that evening wasn't just shock. It was fear. Fear that his mother had never fully believed his reign could hold. Fear that the crown he finally wore might already be spiritually passing to the next generation. The dinner ended abruptly at 9:05 p.m. Charles excused himself, citing fatigue. But the truth was clear. Anne had spoken the Queen's prophecy aloud, and Charles could not answer. That silence, captured in the stunned glances of those present, revealed the deepest fracture yet. A monarch shaken not by politics, but by his own mother's final words. Anne's revelation left Charles subdued, but it lifted another figure, Catherine. For the first time, the family now understood that Elizabeth had quietly chosen her as the true anchor of the monarchy. What exactly did the Queen see in her that inspired such trust? Catherine. Queen Elizabeth had observed Catherine for over 11 years before her passing in 2022. From her marriage to William in April 2011, Catherine had grown from a cautious duchess into a future queen consort, marked by restraint and clarity. Unlike others in the royal fold, she never sought headlines. She endured intense media scrutiny, from her 2012 hospital photo scandal to relentless comparisons with Meghan in 2018, yet never lashed out. To the Queen, this was discipline, not weakness. In her private conversations with Anne, Elizabeth highlighted Catherine's calm. She doesn't chase favor. She doesn't seek the crown, that's why she's fit to wear it, she said in August 2022. The Queen admired Catherine's ability to balance motherhood with duty. While Anne's strength was in numbers, completing 450 engagements in 2019 alone, Catherine's strength was in substance. She raised George, Charlotte, and Louis not as royal figures but as grounded children. That, in the Queen's eyes, was legacy at its purest. Elizabeth valued Catherine's silence most of all. Where others defended themselves against criticism, Catherine endured. She let time answer her critics, never words. The Queen had always believed silence was the monarchy's strongest weapon. And in Catherine, she saw a mirror of her own philosophy. Duty above emotion, service above self. That was why she confided to Anne, "She's the one who will carry us forward." For Anne, repeating those words at the family dinner in 2024 was not betrayal. It was fulfillment. The Queen's prophecy had been meant for Catherine, and Anne ensured it would not be buried. In that moment, Catherine's quiet strength was no longer overlooked. It was acknowledged as the monarchy's foundation. But if the Queen saw Catherine as the future, how did Anne reconcile her own lifelong service? For decades, she had carried the weight of duty with thousands of engagements. Critics often compared Anne's relentless schedule with Catherine's more measured approach. Yet Anne herself defended her, and in that defense, she revealed how she and Catherine were more alike than anyone thought. Behind the numbers. Royal commentators loved numbers. In 2019, Princess Anne completed 453 official engagements, compared to Catherine's 126. The press painted Anne as the workhorse, and Catherine as selective. But the Queen dismissed these comparisons, reminding Anne that legacy isn't in the count, it's in the impact. And Anne understood this better than anyone. Though she had been visible for decades, Catherine was shaping the monarchy from the inside, raising the next sovereign, Prince George, who turned 11 in July 2024. Anne publicly defended her in March 2024, telling a confidant, "She's investing where it counts, the next generation." To Anne, Catherine's quieter schedule wasn't a weakness. It was strategy. Catherine was balancing public duty with private responsibility, ensuring the monarchy's survival through her children. This mirrored Anne's own philosophy. Duty isn't about noise. It's about endurance. The Queen had recognized this parallel before her death in 2022. She saw Anne as the embodiment of visible service, Catherine as the quiet builder of legacy. Together, they represented the balance the monarchy needed: stability outside and strength within. That was why she trusted Anne with her prophecy. It wasn't just about Catherine's potential, it was about their shared discipline, different but equal. By the time Anne revealed the prophecy in late 2024, the comparisons no longer mattered. Numbers on paper faded beside the Queen's words. What mattered was trust. And in Catherine, Elizabeth saw the one royal who would carry the monarchy beyond the reign of Charles. Anne, who had spent her life in the trenches of duty, had no jealousy in saying so. Instead, she defended it, and in doing so, cemented Catherine as the quiet queen already in motion. Anne's defense of Catherine silenced critics. But what bound the two women even deeper was something more personal. An alliance forged in private, built not on spectacle, but on mutual respect. And together, they became the monarchy's strongest, most underestimated force. The private alliance. Their alliance didn't begin with public speeches. It began in whispers, long before the late 2024 dinner at Buckingham Palace. At events in 2016 and 2017, Anne and Catherine shared brief exchanges, no more than 2 to 3 minutes at a time, but something unspoken passed between them. Anne recognized in Catherine the same stoicism she herself had lived with since the 1970s. A woman who worked quietly, who didn't demand favor, but who delivered when it mattered. By 2019, during Trooping the Color, cameras caught Anne leaning toward Catherine on the balcony. Their conversation lasted only 15 seconds, but lip readers suggested Anne's words were sharp advice. Don't watch them. Watch yourself. Catherine smiled faintly, and that was the end of it. For Anne, that was mentorship. No lectures, no grand gestures, just short, decisive wisdom. As pressures mounted in 2021 to 2022, Catherine found herself increasingly compared to Meghan, accused of being too quiet, too withdrawn. Anne understood better than anyone the weight of unfair comparison. She told Catherine privately in February 2022, "Your silence is louder than their noise." That reassurance mattered. For the first time, Catherine saw Anne not just as William's aunt, but as an ally. Over time, their alliance grew. Shared frustrations at outdated protocols, knowing glances during family events. quiet conversations in the back of state cars. By the time Anne revealed the Queen's prophecy in 2024, their bond was unbreakable. Two women underestimated for years, now united by silence, discipline, and the Queen's blessing. Together, they became the monarchy's most underestimated, yet most powerful, force. Anne and Catherine's private bond grew stronger, but Catherine's challenges were not confined to the palace. She lived in a new battlefield the Queen never knew, the digital storm. And in that world, every silence, every absence became a weapon against her. Catherine versus the digital storm. Princess Anne faced scrutiny in newspapers throughout the 1970s and 1980s, but Catherine's battlefield is different. In the 2020s, she lives under a 24/7 digital microscope. A missed event becomes trending gossip within 12 minutes. A photo from 2014 resurfaces and is reinterpreted by strangers on platforms the monarchy cannot control. Every smile, every silence, every step is dissected. The criticism peaked in November 2023 when Catherine skipped the Earthshot Awards in Singapore. Headlines screamed, "Where is Kate?" But behind closed doors, she was helping Prince George, then age 10, prepare for crucial exams. To Catherine, motherhood was duty too. Anne, upon hearing this, defended her in a sharp comment to aides. She's not missing duty. She's fulfilling it where it matters most. Catherine's strength lies not in responding, but in enduring. Unlike Charles, who often defended himself, or Harry, who aired grievances publicly, Catherine chose silence. She understood the Queen's old rule: never complain, never explain. By sticking to that, even in 2024, she embodied the monarchy's survival code in a digital age that thrives on reaction. And in that silence, Catherine won. Polls released in December 2023 showed her approval at 81%, even after criticism. By doing nothing, she let the noise die and the truth speak. This resilience was exactly what the Queen had admired. And Anne knew it was time the family understood it too. Catherine's endurance in the digital age proved the Queen right. She didn't need to shout, defend, or chase attention. She already carried the weight of the monarchy every day, and in many ways, she was already wearing the quiet crown. The quiet crown Catherine already wears. By early 2025, Catherine's role was undeniable. She wasn't just William's wife or the Princess of Wales. She was already living as if she were queen. Every decision, from engagements to parenting, reflected the crown's future. Her morning began at 6:30 a.m., reviewing schedules for George, Charlotte, and Louis, balancing school runs with charity planning. While Charles attended short appearances of 15 minutes, Catherine spent hours inside schools and hospitals, listening, observing, supporting. Catherine became the emotional anchor for William. During Charles's health struggles in late 2024, she steadied her husband, reminding him of duty while shielding their children from chaos. In private, staff noted how she guided William's speeches, encouraging plain words instead of palace jargon. For Elizabeth, this was exactly what leadership meant: calm influence, not ceremonial noise. Her quiet crown was heavy. Catherine faced constant criticism, digital storms, and the strain of raising 3 children under global scrutiny. Yet she carried it with dignity. Unlike Camilla, who withdrew in March 2025 after public backlash, Catherine stepped forward, more visible, more resolute. Her strength wasn't in grandeur. It was in steadiness. the kind of power the Queen had trusted her to embody. Anne recognized it clearly. When she told the family, Catherine was always different. She wasn't making a prediction. She was confirming a truth already visible. Catherine didn't need a coronation to prove her role. She was already carrying the monarchy in every choice, every silence, every act of resilience. And so, when Anne revealed the Queen's prophecy, it wasn't a surprise to those watching closely. It was a confirmation. The Queen had seen Catherine's future long before the rest of the family. And now, as Charles faltered, the prophecy stood fulfilled. The Queen's prophecy fulfilled. The Queen's words to Anne in August 2022 echoed louder in 2025. Catherine is the future. She had never shared this with Charles or William. Only Anne carried it. And by revealing it in that late 2024 dinner, she ensured history would know what Elizabeth truly believed. It wasn't about titles. It was about who had the strength to hold the monarchy's soul. Charles's reign was still intact, but it was fragile. He appeared publicly only twice in May 2025, each time for less than 15 minutes. Meanwhile, Catherine's presence grew, visiting schools in Leeds, hospitals in London, and leading charities once managed by Camilla. Public opinion shifted permanently. Catherine wasn't just a princess anymore. She was the monarch in practice, if not in title. Anne's revelation confirmed what many already sensed. Catherine had become the stabilizer the monarchy desperately needed. In private, William admitted to close aides that his mother's words, through Anne, had lifted Catherine's spirit. It was as if she was finally seen, he said in March 2025. Catherine herself remained silent, but her actions spoke. Unshaken, unhurried, always focused on duty. The prophecy was fulfilled not by ceremony, but by endurance. Elizabeth's final words had made it clear. Catherine carried the monarchy's soul into the future. Charles still wore the crown, but the spirit of the institution, the hope of its survival, had already shifted. It now rested with Catherine, just as the Queen had foreseen. The prophecy Anne revealed has already changed how history views the monarchy. Queen Elizabeth's private words, spoken in August 2022 and carried only by Anne, made it clear. The survival of the crown was not about bloodline, but about character. And in her eyes, Catherine embodied the qualities needed to secure the monarchy's future: calm, restraint, and duty without spectacle. For Charles, who waited 73 years for the throne and was crowned in May 2023, the revelation was devastating. His silence that night wasn't confusion, it was acknowledgement. His own mother had not seen him as the anchor of the crown. Instead, she had chosen Catherine, William's wife, the woman who had quietly endured criticism, digital storms, and comparison, all while raising George, Charlotte, and Louis to carry the monarchy forward. The Queen's message, revealed at that dinner in late 2024, gave Catherine something priceless: recognition. Not in titles, but in trust. From that moment, the public began to see what Elizabeth had seen: Catherine as the quiet queen in waiting, already guiding the monarchy with dignity and resolve. Charles still wears the crown, but the Queen's final prophecy ensures the world knows where the monarchy's soul now lies. And as Anne's words echoed across the palace halls, Catherine's role was no longer just beside William. It was at the very center of the monarchy's survival. Catherine is not the heir by law, but by the Queen's final judgment, she is the heir by heart.